The ideology of going to college has become a mainstay of our culture. Make no mistake about it. College will be beneficial for some, greatly improving their lives. But for others it makes little sense, since what they chose to study leaves them with very little capability to pay back the debt. But what makes this problematic is that most people who want to go to college have very little understanding of what they are getting into, whether it be the college process, how much it will end up costing them, or even if it will be beneficial for them. The evidence for this is that we have about 1 million people defaulting on their college loans every year, and that's on the low end of estimates. Misinformation, a basic lack of understanding, are a poor foundation for any public policy. But a policy where millions of dollars and livelihoods are at stake? To advise to tread carefully is an understatement. Such a policy is the federal student loan system. It is because to incentivize taking on debt that you will never be able to pay back is a fundamentally bad idea. I stand firmly resolved against the resolution as the negative today. For the duration of today's debate, I will be defending 3 contentions, starting with the foundation for my case, contention 1. Students are badly misinformed. Students are badly misinformed. Bill Bennett, former Secretary of Education, put it well when he said, quote, "Glossy brochures promise wide-eyed students a world-class education, a transformative culture, and a lucrative job. But some students leave college and many without even graduating, with a subpar education, measly job prospects, and a mountain of student loan debt." Unquote. The impact of this becomes woefully apparent when you learn the bottom 25th percentile of college graduates end up making the same they would have with just a high school diploma. But beyond a basic lack of understanding of the college process, students are dreadfully misinformed about how much debt they are taking on. In an analysis done by the Brookings Institute, 48% of people going to a public university were unable to estimate how much they paid for their first year of college, with about half of first-year students underestimating how much debt they had taken on. Worse still, 28% of those with federal loans didn't even know they had one, with 14% thinking they had no debt at all. As the writers of the study concluded, quote, "College students do not have a firm grasp on their financial positions, and without this information, it's unlikely that students will be able to make savvy decisions regarding enrollment, major selection, persistence, and employment." Unquote. The reason why this is critical is my second contention. Contention 2. Forgiving debt incentivizes others to take it on. Forgiving debt incentivizes others to take it on. This makes sense logically and also evidence-wise. If you forgive part of the debt from all students, you are doing 2 things. First, making the college price tag seem a lot more insignificant than it really is, and second, setting a precedent for the future, both of which are bad for misinformed students. We already have a college debt problem, and with the proposed policy, you are just encouraging more students to take it on, regardless of their ability to pay it back. According to a report cited by Forbes, this is exactly one of the negative ramifications of forgiving student loan debt. But worse still for the economy overall, relieving students of debt and setting that precedent will ultimately lead them to take on majors that they wouldn't have they actually been responsible for the debt, steering them away from jobs our economy needs. But it gets even worse when we examine my third and final contention, contention 3. College prices will skyrocket. College prices will skyrocket. Imagine you were going to buy a car at a dealership and you come in with $5,000. The guy at the dealership asks how much you are willing to spend, and you answer $5,000. How much do you think you will have spent at the end of the day? Now imagine you go into the dealership and the guy asks how much you are willing to spend, and in response, you write him a blank check. Now you might be asking yourself, why on earth you would want to do something like that? And my response would be, this is exactly one of the things that the government is doing to colleges. In fact, according to a report from the New York Fed, quote, "The average tuition increase associated with expansion of student loans is in some cases 65 cents per dollar," unquote. What this means is that when the government expands its loan system, college prices go up. And why wouldn't they? What makes it even worse is that colleges have very little skin in the game to begin with. As long as their graduation rates are high enough to comply with accreditation, it's irrelevant whether you succeed or not in the real world. As Assistant Professor of Finance and Financial Planner Brandon Renfro pointed out, quote, "A point here is that schools aren't strictly accountable for the debts of their students. If students also aren't responsible for their debt, then neither party to the transaction is responsible for the cost," unquote. In other words, you have a student taking on debt, paying it to a college, and neither is responsible for it. By forgiving college debt, you are taking an already blank check and turning your back with a blindfold on as colleges write out the amount. What we're left with is a policy that is essentially bad for everyone, except maybe colleges. By removing debt, you are making it worse for students who will continue to make bad choices that will end up costing more. You are putting the burden on taxpayers who didn't make the bad choices to begin with, and you are setting a precedent for the future that will be paid not by those who took it on, but by those who didn't. It's an unjust idea that just won't work. Thanks.